Guys, just last week I was doing an interview with someone and we coined the phrase deployment hack. And let me explain this to you because it'll earn you thousands of dollars if done properly. Go ahead and click the like button and get ready to see what happens. Okay, so we all know that the military lifestyle is not always the easiest. And sometimes you get sent away. I mean, I spent 7 months in Afghanistan. They still do 6-month deployments here and there. Sometimes you can go somewhere for a year unaccompanied. Sometimes you can get stationed somewhere for 2 years unaccompanied, like Okinawa. It really just depends, but we all know that there are times we're going to have to be away from loved ones and away from our home in the military. How do we make that one of the best financial things that can happen to us? The deployment hack. So what is the deployment hack? There's a couple different strategies for the deployment hack. One is for, say, a single guy who lives in his house in, we'll say, Jacksonville, North Carolina. So you're stationed at Camp Lejeune and you own this house and the mortgage is, I don't know, $600 a month, $700 a month. You live in your house, your housing allowance is like $800 a month, and you pay your mortgage and everything's great. And then one day you get told that you're deploying for 6 months. And you can, A, keep your BAH, keep paying off your mortgage and go away for 6 months. No big deal. Or B, you can use the deployment hack. And here's where you really build wealth. Now you rent your house out for 6 months. And so your mortgage is being paid by who you're renting the house for. So say you rent it out for $800 a month, they're paying off your mortgage, and you're still getting your housing allowance. Now you just pocket your housing allowance, and over the next 6 months, that $800 becomes what, $4,800 in your pocket that you can reinvest. So that's one example of a very simple deployment hack. You leave, and instead of just paying off your mortgage, you take all your stuff out of the house, sure it's kind of a pain, and you rent it to somebody for 6 months. Boom, money in your pocket. Another example, and this is the one that takes a little bit more convincing, would be like for me. Right now I live in Hawaii, I'm married, I have 2 kids, and we live in our house. And right now I live in base housing, but let's say that I lived out in Kailua and I owned my house. Now I could send my family home back to Missouri. They could live with their parents, they could live in our actual house back there, they could live, heck, they could rent a place, whatever. And my housing allowance here in Hawaii is like $3,000 a month. And by getting deployed, I'm still deployed from a Hawaii zone, I still get that deployment pay and that BAH, but we're not paying for rent. So now I can pocket that $3,000 a month and bada bing, bada boom, a little extra money in the pocket. An even simpler version of that is that right now we live in base housing. But what would happen if I just turned in my base housing for 6 months and I went away and we kept getting that BAH for 6 months while they were gone? And again, maybe they rent somewhere for $500, $600 a month in Missouri. My housing allowance out here is $3,000 a month. There's a very large difference there. Now, there's some tricks to this because you may have to do some research as far as if your wife moves somewhere, you may end up getting that BAH. But even that would still be better than paying your full housing allowance and not getting anything. So there's a couple different ways to use the deployment hack strategy here. My favorite is the one where you rent your house out and keep getting your BAH for the whole time you're gone. That is just brilliant. My friend Joe Alvarez, who was on last week's podcast, episode 11, he talked about this, and that's where we came up with this great phrase. So now you're literally getting your housing allowance and rent for the same property. Basically, you've doubled your housing allowance and you still own the property. So guys, thinking a little bit outside the box with this is a brilliant strategy. There's a couple other benefits too. So separations pay, if you get stuck 6 months away, over 30 days away, it's an extra $250 a month. So that's a little bit extra in your pocket. And then there's other ways to use this strategy even still. So for example, I'm still stationed in Hawaii. What if my family went home 3 months prior to me leaving the island? Well, that's, 3 months of $3,000 a month. What if I just live with a friend and pay him $1,000? And now over the next 3 months we make $6,000 just for my family being home because I'm keeping my housing allowance here, living with a friend for a few months, no big deal. So there's a couple different ways to work this strategy to your advantage. It may not necessarily be the most emotionally fun strategy, but financially, this deployment hack can change your life. If you like the idea of the strategy, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Subscribe, click the like button, and more importantly, stay tuned for more content.